What's up? Big Kirk 916. Muscle up. Um, Updating you guys out there on my 1972 Chevelle build. Josh did a video for me while he finished wiring up the car. Man, it's been a long process. It's been a stressful process. It's literally almost made me crazy thinking about this car. I haven't driven it in going on 4 years. It's been to 3 shops in the process of getting done, and I'm very close to having the car done. And I look forward to driving it and doing a lot of content, sharing with you guys. But I just want to update you for those who have been wondering what's going on with the green machine. Well, the green machine is almost done. So, hey, thank you, Josh, for the video. You guys tap in and check this out. Leave a comment, subscribe, and share the channel. And I look forward to seeing you at the next car show. Muscle up.
So this week we've been working pretty hard on Marcus's Chevelle here. Well, I have at least. It's obviously been here way too long. But hi, I'm Josh. I'm the wiring guy, brake guy, suspension guy, transmission guy, mostly the wiring guy. But I've been out of town for almost a year, and now I'm finally back at Matt Hunt Muscle Cars working on Marcus's Chevelle. Work's been slow. Everything on this car has been fighting us due to it's just kind of a hodgepodge of parts. If he hasn't told you anything about this car, it has a 2002-ish LQ4 truck block with LS3 heads, which is a nice rectangle port heads that have been ported. The motor's been built. I believe this is a 408 stroker motor with forged bottom end, with obviously an Edelbrock E4 supercharger on it. We got this from the body shop that it was stuck in body shop jail for a long time, and then it came here and now it's stuck in electrical jail. We continue with the build because the paint shop lost their wiring guy. He quit or they fired him or something. So we inherited this project as a non-running car. Supposedly the engine was on a dyno. We have a dyno sheet for it, but they didn't run it with the supercharger on it. So we got it with the supercharger kind of thrown on it and the motor thrown in. So far, mods that we've had to do, we put a smaller pulley on the supercharger, but mostly because we needed to upgrade it to this nice 8-rib belt, which is kind of huge, courtesy of Innovation West. Like the actual part number for this belt comes off of a 2002 Ford ambulance with dual alternators with a 7.3 power stroke. So it's massive. So we should not have to worry about belt slippage. If you remember what it had before, it had a manually adjusted tensioner. Now we're back to an automatic spring tensioner, so we should get plenty of miles of maintenance-free fun with this. We had to redo all the coolant lines for the supercharger intercooler system because whatever coolant they had in it ate all the lines. So we converted it from the quick connects that it had. Let's see if we got that somewhere. We don't, so never mind on that. Edit that out because I can't find them. So we converted it from the quick connect plastic style back to just regular nice worm clamps, which with this system isn't going to get to boiling point. So these actually are not high pressure. We temporarily put plastic tees on here until we can find, well, we're going to make some stainless pipe fittings for that so it's a little more resilient. And another thing we did, we actually moved the whole engine assembly back a full inch for header clearance, but mostly tie rod clearance on the suspension because this thing actually had the wrong pan installed that's not compatible with A bodies. And as for wiring, we're still in the process of converting this thing over to this nice American Auto 7072 Chevelle harness, which I'm very thankful we have, which adds nice fuse blocks and really nice high gauge wire. But the American Auto wire harness is actually only designed for the factory carbureted engine, so it has to have a little bit of modifications to fit the LS. But luckily, American Auto Wire actually adds the circuits to convert it to readily available EFI systems. Which, speaking of EFI systems, we are actually running a Terminator X kit. A little dusty, but this is a full standalone system for Holley systems. It has the transmission controller built into it. It has CAN bus output, which lets us hook directly to the Holley EFI Pro Dash, which really cleans up this whole area. If you ignore the wires, all we're going to have is the display, headlights, key, and AC controls. The stereo is going to be down in the center console where it was, so nothing really changed there. But the complication was the steering wheel is 70 Chevelle, which doesn't have the steering lock or the ignition inside the column. So we didn't have the provisions anymore from the previous builder cut out all of behind here, so we had nowhere to put a factory ignition switch, so we had to use this generic kind of tractor-ish switch that I'm not exactly happy about, but it does have accessory and start, and you can take the key out. So it works form over function on that one. We reused the B&M shifter that was in here. We added the harness for reverse lights and neutral safety, which was kind of cobbled together before. Now it's actually correctly installed and should last a long, long time. Actually, let's grab this flashlight. We're going to need it, because this place is kind of a dungeon when it comes to recording. As for the trunk, we put the dual altimeters in, which are mounted, wired up. We left the stereo system that was in here prior. This is just, you know, a piece of plastic to cover up these Rockford Fosgate 15s. Pretty sweet. That should sound probably better since the wiring has been upgraded with double Optimas. Since we're running dual fuel pumps now, I had to upgrade the fuel control system, so we're running two 30-amp relays, which are just hooked up in parallel because we only have the one output from the Holley system, but it is hooked up direct to the battery with some nice 14-gauge fuse holders, so this fuel system should be good for about 1,000 horsepower, which is way overkill for what our power goals are. Which we're hoping for 800 on E85, but 650 street at the wheels would be pretty impressive to me. Get a nice view of the Holley dash. Can't wait to fire that thing up. Now let's get this thing in the air so I could show off what we've done underneath and what still needs to be done. Now we got the car in the air. You can see that we have the aftercooler, intercooler, heat exchanger for the supercharger mounted. It's a little low because, again, this came off of a truck, but it was on the car. I was told it was originally on the car, so we put it back on the car. We just made a bracket and supported it, but with how high we have the car because of the rims and tires, it should be fine for now. And these things are not that expensive even if it gets damaged, because honestly, even if we did replace it, we'd just be throwing this one away, so let's just use it for now. You can see the new pan. This is a Holley 302-2 pan, I believe. This pan, you can see how short it is here to give you clearance for the tie rods, because when these things swing, they swing right into the pan. Because we do not have a lot of real estate under here with the training lines, the cooler pipes, and the tie rods. But you know, we have really nice ground clearance on the oil pan. But you can see the oil pan's nice and even. We got the trans mounted, the shifter hooked up. If you remember previously, we put chassis reinforcement all the way around where we boxed the frame with the Hellwig kit, I believe it was, which added an extra mount and boxed in the whole frame. So now the whole frame is super strong all the way around the car. We have the fuel lines all plumbed up, wired up. Gas tank's on its final install. Got the big Holley fuel filter. See, we ran the battery cable through an actual bulkhead, which I like. Ran double grounds to the frame, just to try to keep the interference down as much as we can. We have a drive shaft on order because, I'll admit it, that was my fault. I measured for the original drive shaft and I measured it with it in the air, and I thought I compensated enough, but I didn't. So here's the actual drive shaft. Drive Shaft Pros is hooking us up with that. And they would have that, except for when you cut them too short, they're not able to put it in a metal stretcher and add more material, so they have to cut a complete new drive shaft. Again, my fault. So they're working on that. Well, we got the starter installed with, again, my, well, what good is this? I think it's it's a single aught battery wire. With an 8 gauge feeding the main part of the car. So I'm pretty happy with that. This aftermarket starter doesn't quite have a lot of starter clearance, but it should be fine. Again, I'm real happy with how this whole area turned out. Like I said, lots of clearance for the oil pan. You can see how close we are right there. You can pretty much see how it's completely designed to fit this car. Which the other pan they had was, it was a Holley pan as well, but it was an early revision of it. It was the 302-1, which adds clearance here, but not enough here. So it'll fit like a rear steer F-body Camaro, but these front A-body steer, well, these front steer A-bodies, there's just not enough clearance. Or you have to compensate by lifting the motor really high. And I hate doing that, and we don't even have that option because the supercharger's so tall. So even after we put this pan on, the reason we had to move the motor back is because, like I said, you can see how much clearance we had there. And this is after I moved the motor back a complete inch. And that was after the last shop had it installed and said it was just needing to be wired. So you get a good look at the Innovative West power steering pulley. This, like I said, that pulley kit was a work of art. But it took us like 3 months to get it here because it was just, they don't really make a kit for an E4 supercharger because it's supposed to be your everyman special supercharger. We're going to try to push it well beyond what it's supposed to do. So like I said, shooting for that 800 goal, but I'll accept anything over 650 at the Weir tires, again with 85. Oh, speaking of E85, another upgrade we did is we added the Continental GM flex fuel sensor, which we added to the return line because they only make these in a -6. Well, technically it's a 3/8. I wanted to run a Y adapter into the main line, but I got outvoted. This is easier, this is cheaper, this is quicker, so that's now installed, done deal, going on with our lives. Well, this lets us run E85 out the pump or 91, and we can actually adjust the tune. Well, the Holley system can actually auto adjust the fuel curve to match whatever is in the tank. And with this and the Pro Dash, it'll actually tell us the alcohol percentage on the fly in real time right on the dash. So that way, if you get a tank of E70, because the pump E85 is it's rated for E up to 85% ethanol. It can be anything underneath. So technically, if it's over E15 or 15% ethanol, it's still considered E85. So with this sensor, we don't have to worry about running into a lean issue, which what would happen if we tuned this thing for E85 and ran pump gas or a tank of bad E85. It'll compensate, it'll just reduce power, it'll be fine. Again, back to that safeties that the car never had before. So let's get this thing on the ground and get back to the top. But for things left to do to get this thing on the street, I actually started making a list, which I should have done in the first place to give the other guys in the shop an idea what still needs to be done when I'm not here, because I'm not actually here full time yet. I kind of run my own business on the side, and I like to come here because it's the beach and the weather's always a lot nicer out here. Oh, and Matt always has something cool, like check this thing out. He's got one of his 90 built Supras out here. That's like 650 horsepower to a wheel. Pretty sweet. Got first gen Broncos galore. We're building a GTO over here, and we got a 55 Chevy going on over there. We got this Mustang that's kind of a forever project. We're not going to talk about that. But there's always something going on at Matt Hunt Muscle Cars, which unfortunately kind of delays some projects. But like I said, actually I never finished that. So the compatibility problems. I said it had a truck motor, but that's a car throttle body. The pedal was to a GTO. It was originally wired as an LS2 with rigged up knock sensors, a rigged up intake sensor. Like it was still using the intake sensor in here. Here, let me show you this thing. So it was still using the LS2 style 5-wire mass airflow sensor / intake air temperature. But the problem with this is you could see one of those, that one right there, the little bung, that's the intake air temperature. You don't read intake air temperature before the supercharger on supercharged vehicles because it is not an accurate representation. The factory sensor is actually down here, which we use something called a T-map. This is actually off of a supercharged SS Cobalt from 2006 to 2008, and it's a 3-bar map sensor with a built-in temperature sensor to read the temperature in or after the supercharged air. That way the computer can compensate for hotter air. The air here, which is where the mass airflow sensor would be, is only going to read ambient, while the temperature inside here could be at like 400 degrees. And you need to compensate for that, or you're going to get hot combustion temperatures, and you're going to get knock, and you're going to get a blown up piston, which equals not fun. With the T-map and the Holley system and the knock sensors back in the right place, this thing should have a lot more safety features to keep this motor happy a lot longer. And part of the things we're still doing is we're going to build custom aluminum radiator hoses. So we got the stack of it here. We had to order those. Those are actually pretty hard to get right now. So when we found them, we bought all of them. I mean, they come like this. They're pretty sweet. So we got to build a lower and an upper. We would like to upgrade the radiator, but this big factory replacement 3-core, actually it's not even a 3-core, it's a big 2-core. Hopefully should be fine, but I know you live down in Arizona, so if this thing starts running hot, we'll fix it then. We're going to get it running because it's been too long. So again, have patience with us. We're getting it done. It should be a little ripper. I just hope that 4L60 that's behind this thing is up to the snuff. I hope you enjoyed the tour of Marcus's supercharged LS powered 408 stroker monster thing. And I hope it gets done soon enough so you can get it on the road and see this thing at all the various shows that I'm hoping he's still planning on taking it to. So once again, sorry for the delay, Marcus. So I hope you come down and see this thing finished and running soon. I'm Josh Johnson. This is Matt Hunt Muscle Cars. This is Marcus's Chevelle. Hope you like it. Hopefully.